Um, let me start to share my screen, Rez, if it's okay with you. Okay, can you see that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, once again, thank you for having me here. This is a talk initially, or most of the time, I deliver this talk to general public, not really marine biologists or marine science people like you guys. So it's about the ghost net, that the global problem that this represents. Um, Once again, my name is Edgardo Ochoa. I'm the Global Marine and Diving Safety Officer for Conservation International. We are a global NGO. We have conservation projects in around 70 different countries. We have physical presence in around 28, not all of them with marine programs, but many with marine programs. I do want to know more about our organization. The website is conservation.org. So feel free to go and uh, dive into the different programs we have. Okay, on this talk, I want to take you to the introduction of this problem. I explain why or how this is a global problem, and see some of the different actions that we've been taking on this. First of all, I want to start with the ignorance as a one of the problems, one of the issues that we have with this. For most people, going to the beach or enjoy the ocean is something similar to the picture you see here. So for many, they don't know about the problem we have with abandoned fishing gear. Uh, During the talk, we refer to this as a fishing gear or ghost net, but basically the same. Just the fishing gears involve all other different fishing arts that is not necessarily nets. So the first problem is this: we don't know about, or most people don't know about the problem we have with the abandoned fishing gear. Okay, let me see. For some reason, I can go to the different screen. Okay. Ghost nets are all these fishing nets, or once again, just abandoned fishing gear. Uh, they is either accidentally or deliberately abandoned the sea. These nets still fishing, and they travel for the different oceans, moving by the currents or tides, winds, and they continue to fish as they move through the to different waters. One of the big problems is these nets not only catch the more iconic species like whales, sea lions, seals, sea turtles. They actually catch too some of the juveniles, small fish, and many other, including invertebrates. Uh, so you know better, but this is just a little sample of the different fishing arts, all the way from trams, small nets with a big holes, but also the industrial ones. So this is kind of a little bit of what we faces on this as a problem. And this is very important because we usually say, well, if we don't have more fishing, we don't need more nets, so end of the problem. The problem we have is we need fishing. It's actually really important. According with the FAO, the consumption of fish or seafood reached a record of almost 21 kilograms per person uh, last year. Aquaculture now represents almost half of the products for human consumption. Anyway, the fisheries are super important, especially we need to uh, address the issue that we want to have almost 10 billion people by 2050. So we cannot give the we can stop fishing. It's super important. It represents almost 20% of the protein consumed by humans globally. Just in Asia and North America, the seafood consumption represents almost 50% of the global consumption. So, in order to keep this image that we still enjoying this food, and of course, this is a nice presentation, but we need to actually consider that for many different communities, this is the primary source of protein. So we need to keep fishing. Uh, of course, and in especially in the place where you are now, this is something that would what you work every day. The fish management. That means resource availability, having some historical information, the fishing capacity, biological information, and understand the different seasons. Finally, how all these improved technologies affect the way we fish. Once again, this talk is designed for people who that sometimes is the first time they listen about this. For you, is something you see every day. So the world fishing areas are designed is I think it's a little bit arbitrary now because different groups have a different areas. However, this is probably the most complete map I can find about this. And just to use one of these areas as an example, just the North Atlantic, and I don't discriminate by the different fisheries in the North Atlantic. It's just in general. According with the FAO, in the North Atlantic, the fishers lost 25,000 nets every year. This represents almost 1,250 kilometers. And this is the distance, almost the distance from Alexandria, Virginia, where I'm sitting now, to Quebec. Can you imagine to drive all this distance and in one side of the road have just nets all over, all around? And it's only for one fishery or one area, and it's only for 1 year. And this happens every year. How much this net weight? I just try to put it in different perspective. According with the United Nations, it's around 640,000 tons. This is the equivalent as over 500,000 Nissan Versa. And we put these nets every year on the ocean. Once again, the same numbers is that is estimated for that we drop in the ocean and just get lost. We know that we have reports that this affects 146,000 seals, sea lions, and whales, millions of other animals, seabirds, turtles, fish. And we know also that 40% of the whales and dolphin global population are affected in some way by all this abandoned fishing gear. A couple of years ago, Nature published this article. It's very interesting. And they found that the almost 46% of the plastics abandoned or floating in the big Pacific patch is made by fishing nets, by abandoned fishing nets. So if we use the same numbers, it's almost half of the plastic in the ocean is fishing nets or abandoned fishing gear. And this is a problem, and it's a big problem, and have many different branches. One, of course, is the animal trapped in nets or fishing lines. You can see in this picture with the sea lion, it's a fishing line on the neck, And the problem with this is these animals, most of these animals die in some point because they drown, or basically they can eat, they starve to death. The other issue is that most of these nets keep capturing juveniles and prevent their reproduction. And this have a direct impact on the economic, on the protein source for many coastal communities. And some of the other problems which usually we don't consider, but this is navigation problems. There's report that or issues with some boats or ships, even causing accidents or dead accidents. Uh, it's not bad or don't represent too much problem with this small problem in a small boat. But what about when this abandoned fishing gear is happening at some of the big boats? Let me show you something on the next slide. The Panama Canal. Through the Panama Canal pass around 5% of the world commerce. The Panama Canal connects over 100 roads in 1,700 ports on 160 different countries. If you don't know the Panama Canal, this place works 24/7. And it's amazing how they organize the crossing of the different boats, and it's really like a watch. They know exactly when and how the different boats have to pass there. So sometimes, if one of these boats gets trapped on an abandoned fishing gear, that actually disconnect the whole system because they have to wait, and that interrupt the traffic, and also have a huge impact on the world commerce in some way. One of the other problems that we have is the use of technology. Uh, Technology and we as a humans are really, really good improving things, improving our stuff. So now we have an amazing technology to track fish or other marine resources. We improve the not only the technology of the nets, but also the way the different advanced technology we use to find fish. We have now hydrophones, we have sonars. Some boats, they use helicopters to track the tuna fish. I mean, it's so many different ways. We've been really, really good improving the way we can fish in order to don't leave anything after we pass with our fishing gear and with all this advanced technology. We have been improving also the shapes and materials of the fishing gear. Uh, we have a very specialized gear for different species, target species, and the idea is to catch more. Our materials are way cheaper, are resistant. We don't know exactly how resistant they are. Only 50 years ago, most of the fish gears we know will be degrade in around 50 years. Today, we don't even know how long a nylon net or fishing line will last. We have been improving this big time, and we don't have yet the time to know the impact of all this. Jeremy Jackson is probably one of the most important marine scientists in the world, and I heard him mention this. Is talking about the fishing gear. Say he's like we are using military weapons to destroy marine animals, and the problem is that we are winning this battle, and he's absolutely right. Uh, just to mention some other numbers, just in the Gulf of St. Lawrence in Canada, 800 crab traps are lost every year. This represents almost 3% of the every ship assessed. So they actually lost these traps, and they don't only lose money, but also this impact directly on the environment because these traps still underwater and still catching crabs. Uh, just in the US, they estimate that each ghost net is still fishing or killing in a year the equivalent of around 20,000 US dollars. And you know the size of these tuna trolling nets, which is 200 meters deep and could be 1.6 kilometers long. It's huge nets, and they continue fishing. More numbers just in the Caribbean. Each hurricane season, we have an estimate of 20,000 lobster traps to get lost. So that also represents a huge impact, not only for the fishermen, but for the environment and obviously for the local economy. Um, and I want to mention this. This is the case in Nuquí. This is a province in the province of Chocó in Colombia. This is a very interesting community. It's one of the most biodiverse places in the planet, and the people there, the locals, decide to keep very low profiles in terms of tourism. They have a pretty good diving. They have a great fishing. They have a season with the sea turtles nest in that area, and they also have a humpback whales to go to that waters to deliver the calf in that area. So it's very important, and they have been using the economy is based in a low impact tourist for this area. So they only fish what they need to in order to provide food for the tourists, some local consumption, and this is setting very well. However, they have the problem of the trolling boats, especially for shrimp or others. We use this water because it's no regulations uh, to catch with fish with nets because they don't know the area, and this area is particularly famous because they call it riscales. It's basically rocky reef all along the coast. So most of the people who is not from there don't know where these riscales of rocky reef are, and usually they just uh, put the nets in the water, and these nets get trapped on this rocky reef. The net's still there, and they start moving, and they reached Conservation International a few years ago, and they asked me if I can go there and organize a workshop with the locals to show them how to safely remove this abandoned fishing gear. The idea for them is not only remove these nets because they need to fish, and the nets don't allow them to fish because usually they use lines, hand lines, and the hand lines say the hawks get trapped on the nets. But also because they know how important is this for the whale season. The whale season lasts for around 3 or 4 months, and they made enough money during these 3 or 4 months to keep the community alive for the next 8 months. But every year they have reports of whales trapped on nets. When we were there a couple of years ago, we have the report of this humpback whale with a huge net on the tail. It's very difficult to remove a net from a whale. However, we're actually looking for the whale, to see if we can do something. We're looking for the whale for a couple of days, and we don't saw that. However, like a week later, I received this photo from the same whale. As you can see, the net just cut the tail. We have the reports of the whales still alive. It's just way more difficult to swim. But it's something like it's sad, and is I mean, it's just difficult to understand why we continue to do this, especially because once again the whales represent a lot for the local community, and the industrial fishing causes this damage. So how this happened? I don't know any fisherman or boat who intentionally wants to lose their gear. Happen because bad weather or an accident or some mechanical problem. The problem is that we don't report, or the fishermen don't report these nets. Don't report because many different reasons. Usually it's because it's illegal. It's because they start fishing on a inside a marine protected area, because they're using some illegal gear, or because they out of the season. Yeah. And even in some countries who have more advanced legislations, when they have the fishermen have a legal fishing gear and they for any reason lost their nets, if they report, the government entitled them to a fine. So the problem is even the legal nets are not reported. So we don't know where these nets are. Solutions many, and something I'm really excited about this talk is that you guys probably have some way much better ideas. The same technology that is part of the problem can help. We've been thinking on tracking device to make the fishing gear owner have some responsibility over the nets, that we know if they get that lost where the nets are, so we can go and actually retrieve it from the ocean, start using different materials, and obviously have more regulations, way more regulations to stop this massive fishing. Some other countries or some other areas in the planet have a different and simple solution. In 2002, in the Arabian Sea, they lost 260, 100,000 traps. It's fish traps and crustacean traps. And that's a lot. And that represents not only the economical damage, but also the economic problem for them. So one of the simple solutions I ever seen is fantastic. It's just now every single trap in that area have at least one of the panel made it with a different material, something that degrades easy. I think the most common one is bamboo. So in case they lost the trap, just after a couple of weeks, all these panels basically disappear, so they disintegrate. So these nets don't represent an ecological problem anymore because the fish can go in and out. So solutions this simple is what we're looking for. Also, we need to remove these nets. And for that, same, few years ago, with the support of the Panamanian government, we decided to design, in partner with PADI, the Professional Association of Diving Instructors, a very specific training to how to safely remove these nets. So we have in Panama the support from the government and other NGOs. So they organize the logistics. We have a pool, we organize conference and a field trip. Pretty simple. And there's several groups doing ghost gear removal. But for this case, it was pretty simple. We went in the pool with normal divers, and when I say normal, is not technical or super advanced divers. It's just people who work with the government, and they dive as a part of the job descriptions. And we're working on the safety and how to use different tools, different protocols. And I consider this as a technical diving, but not the technical or use as you see in this picture, many tanks and a lot of gear, and they really multitask in order to remove these ghost nets. This is actually from a group in Europe, and they do some fantastic job removing fishing gear, but they specialize on deep waters. They go over 40, 50, 60 meters to remove these nets. And what I intend to do with the other training is reach basically recreational divers or non-professional divers. So it's technical diving, but it's not really technical. That means mixed gas, double tanks, and a lot of other different tools. It's something more like a single tank with air and using simple tools. There is more than 6 million recreational divers worldwide. If any of one of these use simple techniques and simple tools like this, something that you can find in any dive shop or hardware store, simple stuff like this to start removing in every dive uh, little pieces of fishing lines, plastics, bottles, piece of net. Nothing difficult, just remove them. This will be a monumental effort on this initiative to clean the ocean. Once that we organize this and do the training and explain the different protocols and the safety and how to use these tools, we actually did a couple field trips in the Panama Bay. We have an amazing collaboration for the Panamanian Navy and some other government agencies. And we actually remove a lot of nets. Though this is not a good news because we don't expect that many. Yeah. This group is still active. They've been removing nets for the last 3 or 4 years. And now they start doing some talks with the local fishermen and local communities to avoid that these nets actually enter or ended abandoned in the ocean. Uh, these pictures just represent what we take out in one of the national marine parks there. So once that we remove the nets from the water, uh, that's the other problem. That what we do with that, and there is different options. So the recycling and reuse is one. There is some industrial solution, mostly in Europe, is when the companies like a Healthy Seas is been using all these abandoned fishing nets or materials to do some clothes, some carpets. There's another company in Chile and California called Bureo, and they using fishing nets to make skateboards. Uh, uh, Adidas, they have a complete line in partnership with Parlay to use these materials to do tennis shoes or some clothes. As mentioned before, Bureo have this um, process. They actually do not recover net from the ocean. They have a system called Net Positiva, where they go and talk with the fishermen, and they have like these collection centers. So the fishermen actually dispose of the nets. They use the nets on these places, and they go and recover and have the whole process to make this skateboard. Now they expand to different materials on different products. They now have sunglasses and frisbees and some other things. Another company in Europe, in the UK, they've been using recovered fishing gear is for Element. They have another line called Ocean Positive to do the rash guards and swimming suits. Uh, so there is some places where the companies are actually doing something interesting. Is so many others. I literally countless of different efforts in how to use this marine debris to do some jewelry or carpets. A few years ago in Paris, there was a fashion show. They have this idea to turning fishnets into the fashion. Uh, I still looking for some information about this, but it's pretty difficult. But as you can see, most of these industrial solutions or recycling solutions are far from where we have more problems. And the more problems, at least in this continent, are in Central South America. This is something that we see very often in Latin America. This is a scene that we see on the beach almost everywhere. And this has been some very interesting solutions or alternatives. We don't have any real recycling program. However, we have this, and the rest, I'm sure we're going to love this one. Some local solutions, and this is Costa Rica, and this is a bridge or a creek made it on buoys and ropes and some materials from abandoned fishing gear. There are also, when they recover these fishing lines with hawks in the Cocos Island National Park, beautiful place by the way. People, I mean the park rangers start doing some work, artisanal work with the hooks, and they create these beautiful sculptures. This is a hammerhead, but they have sea turtles and they have some other things. Places like Panama, they recover the nets from an aquaculture farm and they use it as a fence. Same in Fiji, is they using the ropes to control the erosions of the village there, and also to keep some animals inside. They use it as a fence. In Mexico, I have been in places where they have a hurricane season very strong, and they cover the sales of the houses with abandoned fishing gear, like these nets. This provide a better surface, so they protect the houses like this. It's another example of that. And the right is a net in a restaurant, and this net avoid the little birds enter in the restaurant and take part of your food. This is a personal effort I did. This is my son Diego with his goal made with a shrimp trolling net. Uh, first many years ago, but we recycled that net. And funny, in Panama, I was giving a conference about ghost nets, and when I leave the conference to go back to my hotel, I saw this truck on the road covering some construction materials with another fishing net. So I asked my taxi drivers to go close by so I can take this picture. There's just so many uh, uses of reuse of the abandoned fishing gear. So what I intended with this talk, with this information that is pretty basic, is to put this information out and share the different ideas or the different concepts that it's already there, and see that people like you guys who work or study something important like the fisheries on a pretty high level, you can have a different or better idea. Uh, I'm from Mexico and I live in Panama before, and I have a lot of relationship with other countries in the area. And in Latin America, we have different solutions for quite creative on this. This is Tokyo, and it's the most efficient McDonald's in the world. They can make a Big Mac in less than 40 seconds. And I'm sure in our countries, we are more creative and more efficient in so many ways. And just to use as example, in Mexico, they can make a one taco al pastor in only 8 seconds. And funny thing, in the picture you can see in top of the meat is a pineapple. They just cut a piece and they actually catch that piece. So it's not only tasty, but it's also artistic. So let's use this initiative, this creativity to do something better. Okay? I'm more than happy to take any questions and to listen your different ideas and see if we can improve the different solutions.
Thank you very much, Edgardo. And if anyone has a question, please, you can you can ask. You just mute your microphone and you can ask. I'm gonna ask first while people start thinking. But very nice talk, Edgardo. I was thinking, like, you have done that effort to train local people in Panama, but how difficult is to escalate that kind of effort, and what kind of impact can you expect from that? Like, I guess in in coastal communities could be a big impact if the fisheries are in shallow waters. But what kind of impact do you expect to have on that? Has been the feedback, at least in Panama, and what do you expect in other places?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, Andres. And it's not only Panama. I don't didn't mention, but we do this training also in Colombia, and we did a little bit in Mexico and El Salvador and Indonesia. And the impact is not only that they start removing, but it's more that creating some conscious about this problem. So now people understand that they need to be aware of the consumption. So they understand that different fish in different season is what they need to consume. So the idea is not to remove nets. The idea is don't have more nets or more even plastics on any other marine debris in the ocean. So I think that the message and the feedback has been people understand better that they need to that every action that we did on land actually affect the ocean. So that's probably the big message of this. And the other question you made about the how difficult it is to escalate, we have been receiving a lot of support on this, and I guess part of the support is because it's not only fun to remove something, but it's a rewarding experience. If you go and remove some abandoned fishing gear, is you actually doing something. So the different recreational divers who participate on this, they really feel like they made a contribution to the environment. So I think take a while, but the little by little, I believe we want to have more people diving, not only because they want to see pretty fish, but they also want to make a contribution on not only clean efforts. I guess the we close. I don't know how many of you guys are divers, but I'm sure that I feel like we close to the end of the recreational diving in a contemplative way. I think because there are a lot of information we have, people wants to participate in something else. So that's what I expected to be the way to escalate this issue.
And I'm curious, like, what kind of in that kind of training that you do, like, what kind of skills do you teach that are different, for example, to regular scientific diving or things like that? Like, what's different from that?
The difference is the simplicity, and it's an excellent question. I mean, usually when you invite people to participate on these projects of citizen science, uh, you're doing your PhD now, so you understand this part that somebody let's see, we all have an uncle or an aunt who understand absolutely nothing, and I have several of that ones. Uh, how my uncle can go and help you if he is an accounting, and so do some research requires some very specific skills. What we try to do with this is have basic skills. People want to participate in any way. So the idea is to provide it with some basic skills to do it in a safe manner. So parts like neutral buoyancy, all safety skills, but they don't need to know the name of the fish or how to do a transect or quadrants or take measures. It's just do simple stuff and participate. Once again, the idea on this training, and I have two different courses already, one for fishing gears, another for marine debris in general, how to remove safely from underwater, is to reach these 6 million active recreational divers. We can leave all the other part of the science to people like you guys, and just support with information, but not really participate on take data or provide you with some very specific information.
Thank you. Any other question you have for Edgardo? Arnold?
Hello, hi. Thanks for the talk. So here we do have several programs for ghost fishing gear removal and things like that. Typically, some of the fishing gear that are ghost fishing in the water around here are deeper fishing gear, place where diving is not necessarily easy or accessible. So I was curious if you could discuss about, have you elaborate in your career and in your program other program that will address more, the removal of deeper fishing gear, like things below 100 meters, for instance? And have you came across different program like that around your career and things like that?
That's a great question. Yes and no, because it's very difficult and is actually a safety issue more than a technical issue. The idea, I mean, is a group in Europe called it Ghost Diving. They do stuff like that, and they have different chapters, and I believe they actually have a chapter in Canada. What I want to do in the near future is create an advanced training. I'm not sure if 100 meters is still in my range, but probably around 45 to 60 will be the next advanced fishing gear removal team. And for that, we actually will need more technical capacities, means technical diving. But yes, these different groups working on that. Now we also have the advantage, especially now with the new ROVs that are super simple, small, that we can actually start looking for nets in a deeper waters and try to elaborate different ways to remove. Of course, that needs more training, and the number of participants will be way less. At this moment, I don't think it's more than really 5,000, 6,000 technical divers worldwide. So, and that's the kind of people we need in order to go and remove these nets.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Any other question before we let Ricardo go? If not,
I guess just to continue on that, so outside of diving, is there other technology? So you mentioned ROV, but is there other technology that we could use to find and remove, deeper water fishing gears, or even not necessarily too deep, but I don't know, if people are using benthic mapping, sonar, and things like that? I know it's more advanced in technology, but that's something you came across in your career and that are more and more used or not?
Yes, and we, in some places, we've been using some scan sonars, but the problem is we need to be really fine in order to catch. I mean, the materials are not easy to see directly from the scanner. You really need to tune up very fine in order to see the fishing gear. However, the use of ROVs become more popular to discover. I know because I've been involved in a project in Mexico where we're using an ROVs looking for nets in a range of the 45, 50 meters. That is still something we can use diving to remove, and is really, really hard. I mean, we have a report from fishermen that, and fishermen, when you ask where they lost the net, is something like, yeah, around here. And they made that comment in the ocean. So kind of, oh. So we spend a lot of time basically trolling with the ROV, and we only found pieces of nets, not even enough. But I think little by little, but every year we have a steady advance in technology. So I'm sure, as same that Amazon is planning to deliver your package with a drone, in some point I think we want to have ROVs with the capacity to actually cut nets or put some lift back on and activate a CO capsule and just floating all this stuff to the surface. But this is it's probably the most exciting part for me, to have this kind of conversation with people who is in different fields than mine, and see how we can come up with some great ideas.
Thank you.
Well, if there's no more questions, just thank you very much, Edgardo, for joining us and for sharing your experience in that interesting topic.
Thank you, Andre.
And for all the people here, stay tuned for next week's seminar. That's going to be in our regular hours at 11 next week, and we will start as usual to advertise around Monday. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andres.
Gracias, Edgardo.
Gracias.